You personally to reach this milestone 6 years into your career?
Means a lot, man. Means a lot. It's not easy. It was very hard road, very hard, but we are here. Obviously we're not done. We need 4 more, but I think today we all deserve to enjoy this win.
On today's episode of Inside the Mavs, the Mavericks are back at the NBA Finals for the first time since 2011. And this gentleman who I'm going to talk to today knows a little something about that 2011 team and the parallels that may be seen from that team to this one. Mark Followill joining me here on this episode of Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. Welcome to Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura. I'm your host, Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining us here on this episode of Inside the Mavs. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And if you're watching this on my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports, make sure you like and comment on the video. And you can follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. The Mavericks getting ready for the NBA Finals as they take on the Boston Celtics this coming Thursday for games 1 and 2 in Boston. Plenty to talk about leading up to game 1. And I brought with me a friend of mine who is just as excited as I am and as you are as Mavs fans about the Dallas Mavericks being back in the NBA Finals. The television voice for your Dallas Mavericks, Mark Followill, joining me here on Inside the Mavs. Mark, what's going on?
Hi, Kevin. Great to talk to you. And, man, we've done this a few times, and it's exciting that we're still getting to talk. That means great things are happening. So all is good here. And just like you, and I've had a chance to hear you quite a bit during the playoffs, so I've enjoyed your work and Coop and Brian on the radio broadcasts. And, man, we're just ready to get this thing rolling.
Yeah, it's learning how to manage during an NBA Finals run has been quite the learning experience because we started these playoffs in mid-April. And now it's, as we're recording this, the beginning of June. So the marathon that is the NBA season, not just the 82 games, but an obvious deep playoff run, learning to manage the emotions and everything that comes with it. How have you felt just watching this as the season has gone on, but now culminating in an NBA Finals run? What are the first things kind of that comes to your mind before we jump anything to specific about what this run has meant for the Mavericks so far based on your observations?
Well, the first thing is, it's funny, we're recording here on the 1st of June, and I woke up this morning and thought, man, this is June 1. On May 1, if my memory serves correct, we were getting ready for a Game 5 in LA after the very disappointing Game 4 loss, and the series was on the knife edge and could go either way, especially when you're going out on the road. And obviously, things went well the next 2 games, and it's continued to move on. So that's kind of just funny how the dates have lined up, and that's the first thing that I thought of. And then, when I look at what's happened so far, I just think about what an incredible job that the organization has done in terms of pivoting and putting talent around Luka and Kyrie, and having a firm commitment and believing in what those two could do as a duo, because that's obviously the basis of this whole thing, and how hard everybody has worked and how diligent they were. And sometimes you get lucky in these things too. I mean, remember the Mavs wanted Matisse Thybulle, and they ended up getting Derrick Jones Jr., which was a much better fit. So I just think about just the long hours that everyone has put in, whether it's and talent acquisition like Nico and his staff has done, or whether it's coaching like Jason and his staff have done to get all the pieces to fit together. You work really hard, and there's a lot of games and a lot of hours and a lot of untold things that go on when there aren't bright lights that are shining on everybody. And, I think watching this whole thing culminate in the trip to the finals, I'm happy for all those people who are, getting their chance to be on the biggest stage now after all the hard work they put in.
Yeah, I was telling someone the other day that, it's extremely difficult to remake a team on the fly, and for them to do it at the trade deadline with the acquisitions, of course, of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, the ability not only to make those moves, but then get that to gel and coalesce together in really a short amount of time and then have that turn into a deep postseason run, I think goes really underappreciated because you know as well as anyone, trying to put rosters together is difficult enough, but then changing your entire identity and then trying to move that forward toward a playoff run, it's extraordinary the work that they've been able to do in such a short amount of time relatively.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go into last summer, I mean, the feeling going into last summer was, okay, they have a rebuilding project and they have to remake the team, and this is probably going to be a 2-year project at a minimum, because we kind of all went into last summer saying, okay, they have their pick there in 2023, the 10th pick of the draft after the lottery last summer, but they don't have any cap room. They're probably going to be having to use the taxpayer mid-level to add any sort of talent in the offseason and free agency or anything like that. And they're very limited on first-round picks they can trade in the future because they still have to give one to the Knicks for the Porzingis trade, which is very interesting and coincidental now, given facing Porzingis with Boston in the finals, if in fact he plays. And you know, the fact that there's more, you know, there's some restrictions on what you can do moving farther out in terms of trading first-round picks, because you've got one for sure going to the Brooklyn Nets in 2029 as part of the Kyrie Irving deal. So they went into last summer with what really seemed like incredibly limited assets and have been able to do this that quickly. So it is difficult to remake a team on the fly. And they did it when it looked like that the cupboard of assets was pretty bare to be able to use to do that remake of the team. And they've managed to do that. And it's just, nothing short of extraordinary, in my opinion.
Yeah, and obviously the foundation of this team starts with its two superstars and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. We'll get to plenty of the other guys that have been successful during this postseason run to help them get there. But I'm so thrilled to have watched the journey of these two. I mean, we go back to last year, Mark. You know as well as anyone, this team 5-11 in the games that Luka and Kyrie played together, missing the playoffs in its entirety. And for folks on the outside looking in, thinking, is this duo really going to work long term to put them in a position to where they're competing for a championship? And not only have they done that, the chemistry that the two of them have built together has been incredible to watch. Was there a moment or two that, as you have watched these two be able to play together, that you thought, you know what, this is going to work, and here's a piece of evidence as to why, and now they've propelled themselves to where they are in the NBA Finals now?
Well, I mean, I think from a basketball standpoint, I mean, when you saw at the beginning of the season, and I guess I would go back real quick and just remind everybody, and this was hard to think of in 2024. These things do take time. And so, I look back at last year and saw two very talented individuals, but it's hard to be thrown together in the middle of the season like that. And so, it takes time. And they've moved from being two talented individuals doing their best to being a cohesive duo this year. So to your question about, my realization of things as they've unfolded is at the beginning of the year, from a basketball standpoint, you saw early in the season, first game of the year, tied going into the last 2 minutes. I believe the Mavs were actually down 1 or 2 points going into the last 3 minutes. That very emotional game in San Antonio, because it was, exciting for the Spurs fans with the debut of Wemby, to be able to win that game, win other close games at the beginning of the season, and win a lot of them. So the first thing is, from a basketball standpoint, okay, now they're much better as a cohesive duo in late game situations, which is what you really need to be able to do in the NBA to be successful at the highest level. So that checks the basketball box. Now let's check the chemistry, togetherness, team spirit, teammates box. And it was very apparent throughout the year. But of course, to me, like, one of the endearing, iconic images of this Mavericks season is the win against the Houston Rockets, April the 7th at home, coming back, the Dante Exum shot to force overtime. And then Luka and Kyrie, I mean, essentially like collapsing into each other's arms and walking arm in arm around each other at the end of that grueling overtime, with the win. And Kyrie then bringing everybody in off the bench for that celebration afterwards. I mean, that's just an endearing, iconic image of the year. And, signs, and the sign that, well, they work on the floor, and now, more importantly, because in a lot of ways championships are won this way, they work off the floor. And, Kyrie's been a great mentor for everybody on this team, Luka included. And I love hearing the sound bites from Luka where he talks about, what he's learned from Kyrie and how important Kyrie and his stabilizing force is to this locker room.
More with Mark Followill here on Inside the Mavs as we get you ready for the Mavericks and the Celtics and the NBA Finals and the journey that this team has gone to get there. But before we get there, let's hear from today's sponsor of our video and our podcast. Let's hear from Aura. Today's video is brought to you by Aura. Do a Google search on your name and email address to see how much information comes up about you. I was devastated by the amount of information that I could be seeing searching my name and profile, and I knew then I needed to be protected for not just myself, but also for my family. Data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who may want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, it's all out there. That's why I've been using Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam I get, but it protects me from hackers who could use this information to help them access my social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive information. Aura also does so much more to protect me and my family from online threats that I can't see. It's really easy to set up, so I don't have to download several different apps to get things like antivirus, VPN, password management, parental controls, identity theft insurance, and more. I get everything at one affordable price. You may already have one of these tools already, but not having Aura is like locking the front door and leaving the back door wide open. Aura is always on, doing the hard work to protect me and my family so I can focus on other tasks with peace of mind. I value my privacy and I value yours. You can go to aura.com/Kevin Gray to start your 2-week free trial. Please see the link in the description. Back here on Inside the Mavs. Appreciate you hanging out with us through that break. And thank you to today's sponsor of our video and our podcast, in Aura, with the television voice of your Dallas Mavericks, Mark Followill, as we get you ready for the Mavericks taking on the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals. Mark, I have to keep saying it because I keep thinking about it. It's like, man, we are actually here at this point where the Mavericks are in the NBA Finals. And
it's real and it's spectacular.
It is very, very much so. It very much so is because, speaking of spectacular, I think about Luka Doncic, and, one of the things that I think I've appreciated most about this run for this team, for him specifically, is that for folks who may have not, watched the Mavericks, I don't know how you couldn't because of how, talented he is, but there's going to be a real focus in on him as a player, as a person, and really the kind of career that he's already put together. We're almost completing his 6th NBA season. He's already been a 5-time first-team All-NBA selection. He's a 5-time All-Star. Now he's a scoring champion, had 73 points in a game this year, Western Conference Finals MVP. He's been a Rookie of the Year. He's had, Mark, arguably one of the greatest starts to a career that we've seen maybe ever in the league, and now the basketball world will get a chance to see what we've been able to see and be privileged to over the last now almost 6 years. What have you just thought about his run, his growth and maturation, and how he's gotten to this point based off of what we have learned about him throughout the years now?
Well, I think I would add even more to that. And I think, it's funny, the term basketball world, because I think that people outside of the very NBA specific world understand that Luka already came into the league with an extraordinary resume at 19 years old, playing at Real Madrid, winning ACB, Spanish league titles, being MVP of a Euro League, leading Slovenia to winning a gold medal at Eurobasket in 2017. Once he was in the league, then continuing to star with the national team and getting Slovenia to the Olympics, where they had a great run in 2021. So, I think Luka's resume, by the time he's 25 years and I guess, 3 months old now, is extraordinary. And I do hope that the basketball world, and those who haven't seen him closely until this playoff run and will watch even more closely in the finals will realize how talented he is. And his talent goes far beyond just his ability to put numbers up on the board. I think one of the other defining things of this playoff run is Luka is the focal point, of course, of this team. And defenses, gearing on Kyrie Irving as well. And, Oklahoma City, for example, did a tremendous job at that. And Minnesota made adjustments to try to contain Kyrie Irving as the series went along. But for 6 years now, Luka's been the focal point of the Maverick offense. And I go back to Greg Popovich saying in a game earlier this year in Dallas, and he said, we're, ostensibly these smart head coaches in the NBA and have really smart guys on our staffs, and we're designing defenses to slow this guy down, and he keeps destroying them. His words, destroying them. And Luka has seen every defense and every coverage and understands how to manipulate and exploit and attack all of those defenses and coverages to where he's able to, it's almost a savant-like skill that he has. And so that's what stands out to me for him about this playoff run. What I hope some people can appreciate about his game and will continue to further appreciate about his game is he can score at will. He's a good rebounder. He's a vastly improved defender. He's a very willing passer, and not only passes, but does it with a lot of creativity and flair as well. And he just understands that a game at a savant-like level. And, that to me is what's so much fun to watch him shining and getting this kind of love and attention and these flowers during this playoff run.
Yeah, the competitive fire that Luka Doncic presents on a night-to-night basis is something that people will now on this NBA final stage get the chance to see because he is a ultimate competitor. He loves to win, loathes losing, as we have seen when it comes to the earliest stages of his career, but at the same time relishes the opportunity, especially on the road, to be able to take out a crowd like he did against Minnesota most recently in Game 5, where it's something where a superstar decides at some point, we're not losing this basketball game. And in the first 6 minutes of Game 5, Luka decided that this series was over. And I want to take you back to the moment where he made it 27-18 because Kyle Anderson goes underneath the screen. Luka says, I don't care what you do. I'm pulling up for the logo, and drains it, from 32, 33 feet away. And we're just in awe because I'm thinking about some of the audacity of the shots that Luka's taken, not just in this playoffs, but really just in his career in general, and thinking, how in the world, why in the world, what are you doing? And next thing you know, some of these things are just incredible moments as far as his game is concerned. And I thought that was just another example of he has no fear of these moments when it comes to these kinds of situations.
You know what that play reminded me of? That reminded me of, if you think about the Denver game on St. Patrick's Day at American Airlines Center, where Kyrie had the game-winning shot. Well, Luka tied the game on a three-pointer coming out of a timeout, and they had to get a shot off quick because they wanted to have a 2-for-1 at the end of the game. So they wanted to score, get a stop, and then get the ball back with a chance to win the game. And Luka makes that three-pointer with like 29-point-something seconds to go in the game. And Aaron Gordon got out late to contest that shot because I think he got caught up in a screen and went under, just like you're talking about Kyle Anderson going under a screen and thinking, well, this guy's not going to shoot from there, so of course I'm going to go under the screen. He didn't get out to contest the shot, and Luka made one of those shots where part of his feet are in the logo, at center court, and it's just it's extraordinary. And look, he's not the Lone Ranger in terms of expanded range for great players, and the era that Steph Curry has ushered in 10 years ago or before. I mean, Steph was obviously doing that before Golden State got very, very good in the 2014-15 season and started winning titles. But, Lillard and Trae Young and others, with that willingness to take those long range shots and make them look effortless. And, they're not heaves, they're not prayers. They're shots that these guys can make on the regular. And, it's got to be, in many ways, what I love about the way the Mavericks play now with this remade team is they can demoralize opponents with dunks. And that's so much fun to watch the Mavericks be able to physically control a game. Shots like that for Luka not only physically impose your will on the other team, but they're emotionally and mentally and spiritually, all that sort of thing, demoralizing to the other team because there's truly just, there's no defense for it. And if you're going to go out and cover him 33 feet, 35 feet away from the basket, then that's going to create all this other space on the floor. So it's fun to watch him, man. And he, look, years ago when people think, I think some people still think this was meant to be a nickname, and it's not. That one moment when that weird thought came into my head of, oh man, what this guy does is so incredible. It's like magic, and saying that's Luka Magic. It's not a nickname. It's a thing. It's a state of being. And it's the idea that he is capable of doing these sort of magical things that you wouldn't think anybody else would be able to do. And the harder the situation, the more lost the cause, the more difficult the shot. I mean, it seems like it just brings the best out in him. And I have to say, man, and I have seen a lot of great players and think about, you were talking about his competitive fire, and I can't help but think about Kobe Bryant when I think about somebody who just was on another level when it came to competitive fire. And when it comes to being able to thrive in these improvisational, chaotic, all seems lost situation, and to do it calmly and effectively, even though by his own admission, he'll say it's really hard, but he makes the extraordinary look pretty common. I mean, he's on another level, man. And it's so much fun to watch.
And as you have coined, the ice to Luka Doncic's fire is Kyrie Irving. And one of the things for me that I have appreciated about watching Kyrie Irving's journey here with Dallas is, folks will talk about, the peace that he has found with, the environment that he's in, being with Jason Kidd and Nico Harris, who have known him for quite some time. But the maturation from not just the talent that he presents on the court, but now turning really into veteran leader guy who has not only done so, but embraced that to the point where he has thrived in that role to be able to help not only Luka continue to grow and develop, but really this entire team be galvanized by his leadership. That's not something that I'm sure a lot of folks thought would be part of Kyrie's career arc as it's now become. But yet here we are, and that's a big reason why this team is here. Again, aside from the talent, but what he's brought from that standpoint that's guided this team to where they are in the NBA Finals now.
Yeah, I mean, Kyrie's story is so great, and just so excited that he's here and love seeing what he's brought to the team. And I see Kyrie at shoot-arounds, and during the season, he would wear this hoodie every once in a while, and on the back of it, it said, and I've told this story in a couple of other forums, mastering your craft is a journey. And we're all on a journey in life, whether we're broadcasters or basketball players. And Kyrie, like anyone, is on a journey. And, getting here to Dallas opened up new doors and, presented new challenges and opportunities and roles to embrace in his journey. And I think, Kyrie, I mean, he wears the shirt that says it and he lives it, that, mastering your craft is not just being the best basketball player and having the tightest handles and being able to, get off some pretty extraordinarily difficult shots and make them on the regular his own self, like Luka is able to do. But mastering your craft is also all of these other team-oriented aspects of things, being a mentor, being someone who's acquired. I mean, Kyrie's been in the NBA since 2011. The dude's seen a lot. He's lived a lot. He's experienced a lot, man. And I think, obviously this is an organization that first and foremost from the very beginning wanted Kyrie to feel welcome here. And as Mark Cuban has said in interviews that he's done, because obviously he was majority owner at the time of the acquisition. Kyrie got here and we didn't talk. We listened. We listened to him, and he obviously holds Nico and Jason Kidd in very high regard and has immense respect for him. And it's just, man, it's just fits so well together. And, like I said, I just go back to the mastering your craft as a journey. And Kyrie is continuing to try to master his craft. I saw a video that someone had of Ernie Johnson was sitting there watching him do his pregame routine. And Kyrie goes, "You just watching Ern?" But the funny thing about that was, it's like, man, this is what Kyrie does before every game. He gets there really early. There's nobody there. I mean, hardly any media even there. And he goes through his routine. And, that's what makes the great players great is you have talent, but then you have a work ethic. And he's out there 3 hours before the game going through a pregame routine. And how do you have some of the tightest handles and the ability to get anywhere on the floor like anybody in the history of the league? Well, you go out and put in the work, man. And he's a worker. He's a mentor. He's a spiritual, emotional leader for the team. And, obviously he's immensely respected within the locker room. So Luka's journey is exciting. And so is Kyrie's. It's a really, really neat story to see the way that these two have come together and, the rising tide lifts all boats and their growth as individuals and players is obviously lifted up the whole Mavs organization.
Kyrie Irving talking about what this finals run has meant to him and how he has gotten here. with the Dallas Mavericks?
Feels great, man. Definitely don't take this moment for granted because of how hard we had to work to get here, and we had to earn our spot into the NBA Finals. And we had to go against some great opponents, OKC, Clippers, Wolves, and I feel like they got us better as a team. They really challenged us on the defensive end, made us focus in, and I thanked every single one of them like I did the previous two series for making me better. And it has been 7 long years, but it's also felt like the right amount of time, in order to reward myself, be in the locker room with my teammates and enjoying it. A long time coming. So we are going to enjoy this, but we obviously know this is just a pit stop in the journey, and we got to get ready for, that court turning gold, as I like to say. The shoes turn gold, the jerseys turn gold, and, as a kid, that's what you dream of, getting to is the finals and being able to play against the best of the best with the whole world watching.
Well, Kyrie Irving, ironically, will have a chance to keep the Celtics from finding the pot of gold in terms of Larry in this series against the Celtics in the NBA Finals. Another delicious irony, if you will, of this entire series, with Kyrie Irving taking on one of his former teams in the Boston Celtics in the NBA Finals here. So another just incredible storyline among many that we will discuss, of course, as we get closer, to the series. But, this being about the journey of this particular team. And, there have been several standouts. We've talked about Luka and Kyrie, but, the other individuals on this team who have been really instrumental. We touched a little bit on, with Gafford and PJ Washington, which we'll do here in just a minute. But, the other person for me that comes to mind immediately is the dependence on a 20-year-old rookie who was 19 at the beginning of the season, and the way that he has turned himself into a force on both ends of the floor for this team, and what he's been able to do to affect how this team has gotten to this point. I have been just so incredibly impressed with Derek Lively, not just the player, but the young man that he is and how he continues to display that day in and day out. What have you made of just Derek Lively and the growth and what he has done to help put this team in position, and how much they rely on this young man to be able to be the kind of defensive anchor that he is for this team?
Well, clearly he was raised by an amazing mom, and she instilled, he got basketball talent from her, of course. And, she was tough on him as a coach at times. And he's, talked about those stories, and, just the path that they traveled together, I think speaks to a lot of the maturity that he has. And it's, it's heartbreaking what's happened that Kathy isn't here with us anymore, but, it's heartwarming to see the love, and, he's still sharing this experience with her. And I think that's just, man, it's just emotional to even kind of think about that. But from a basketball standpoint, this team needs that paint protection and the rebound. I mean, that's part of the transformation of this group. Nico and Jason said, yes, Luka and Kyrie will work, but we have to get the right players around them. And Derek Lively is just an example of a perfect fit around those guys, because they want to play pick and roll basketball and have that vertical game, have that lob threat. Then on the other end of the floor, of course, Luka and Kyrie have busted their tail defensively, but you want the best defensive players you can have around them. Lively helps them get extra possessions because of his offensive rebounding. He's and I think, sometimes there's a lot of criticism about the way that young basketball players come up through the ranks now in America. But one thing I think, and I'm not going to get all into that, but one thing I do think that's very clear is Lively was coached very well, because big guys are expected to do different things now. And he really handles himself very well when the ball is in his hands, when they double team Luka. And I mean, he's the best guy. If they're going to double team Luka and blitz off a pick and roll, he's the best guy to have involved in the screen, because he knows what he's doing and he makes good decisions, and he can take it to the basket. He can pass it. And he's just very effective when he has to play the quarterback role in the 4-on-3 if Luka or Kai get doubled in the pick and roll. So just an incredibly talented guy, and as great of a basketball player he is, he's obviously an even better person. And man, his absence in Game 4 was tremendously felt.
Yes.
And his presence in Game 5 was also tremendously felt in terms of his reintroduction into the lineup and the impact he had. But, flowers to Daniel Gafford, too. When Lively and Gafford, this is what they mean to the team, because they're scoring a lot of points. then you know it's going to be done very efficiently because everything they have is around the basket and they're high field goal percentage guys. And as I said earlier, those plays can demoralize the opponent. The dunks can kind of steal your soul a little bit when you're the opponent. But they're 8-0 in the playoffs now. The Mavericks are when Gafford and Lively combined for 20 points, with the latest game in the ledger being Game 5 on Thursday night in Minnesota. So he's very, very special, and another great thing about this run. And I think it's cool too because Tyson Chandler's his mentor, and that gives us the warm and fuzzies about the 2011 run.
Yeah, some of the parallels of that team to this team are apparent, and that's kind of a perfect segue because we've talked about a lot of these players and what they've meant, whether it be PJ Washington, who's turned himself into a really good defender, being better from the 3-point line, Gafford, of course, coming over as well. Guys like Jaden Hardy being contributors, and there's a number of guys that have contributed to this playoff run. But, a lot of criticism has been hurled Jason Kidd's way through the last year or so, given the way things ended last year. But now leading this team to the NBA Finals, and of course, Mavericks fans know the last time this team was in the NBA Finals, Jason Kidd was its point guard playing alongside Dirk Nowitzki and taking out LeBron James and the Miami Heat to win the franchise's first championship. And now he's back 13 years later as its leader, as its head coach. And it's very rare when you have a player be able to not only coach a team to the NBA Finals, but also having won a championship with that team, but also being drafted by that team at the beginning of their career. It's kind of a cool full circle moment for Kidd to be able to be in this spot right now. What have you thought about the job that he has done and how he has grown as a head coach, not just really this year, but so far in the near 3 years that he has been here in Dallas?
To borrow the same phrase from Kyrie Irving's sweatshirt, mastering your craft is a journey. And Jason's own admission, he has said this, that yes, I skipped steps and I came straight from playing to coaching. Played with the Knicks in 2012-13, started coaching the Nets in 2013-14. And he's grown. He's been on the journey of trying to master his craft, and he's the first one to say, I skipped steps. I went to the Lakers as an assistant. I learned from Frank Vogel about how to communicate and manage the relationship as a coach of star players. And then I think that he's come here and he's just, continued to grow. And, no career arc is perfectly linear. There's bumps in the journey. There always is. And by the way, Jason, I think embraces and says that. I mean, how many times you go to the press conferences? I mean, how many times? And I know sometimes this rubs people the wrong way. But, I mean, he always points out that it's okay to fail. I mean, the greatest players ever in the history of the league have had moments of failure through his career. And I think he just, he has a really good wisdom about him and a long life in basketball and experiencing a lot of individual success, but also difficult moments on and off the court. And, and then obviously getting into a team situation here in Dallas where he was able to achieve at the highest level possible of team success. And so, what impresses me is that he stayed the course. There had been all of these, all of this noise from the outside about what he should do and how he should carry himself. And, why doesn't he do this and why doesn't he do that? And what he's done is he's been himself. And that's what you have to do is be yourself. And he's been that guy for 30 years. I mean, for when he was in the league, he was very low key when it came to how he dealt with other players and referees and things like that. And that's how he deals with them now. And it would be totally inauthentic if he started acting like anybody else at this stage of his career. And, people would like, well, what's this guy doing? And this, it doesn't come across as authentic. So he continues to be himself, and, that's what his team wants. And that's what's going to resonate with the young men that he's coaching is be who you are and be yourself. And I think that's what he's done. And, again, he's done it at the highest level and is a Hall of Famer and a champion and, carries immense respect and weight in the locker room because of that.
Yeah, he has pushed all the right buttons during this playoff run. I think one immediately is, the Jaden Hardy button that he has pushed at different points of these playoff runs, and Hardy has rewarded him with some terrific play, in the postseason. Just an example of this is the kinds of things that coaches have to do to not only manage these games, but manage the way that they are able to help these outcomes be able to be effective. for their team and for their players, and he's done a tremendous job of that throughout the course of the postseason, which gets us to this before we end today, because, we've kind of talked about the journey about this team getting to this point in the NBA Finals. And Mark, they're taking on a Boston Celtics team that's been a juggernaut all season long on both ends of the floor. They are one of the most talented teams in the league, with a first-team All-NBA player in Jason Tatum. Kristaps Porzingis, if he comes back healthy, had a tremendous year for them. They've got one of the best defensive guards in the league, and Drew Holiday. I can go on and on about the talent that the Boston Celtics have. There's a reason why they had the best record, in the league this year. But at the same time, I feel like a Mavericks team has gone 7-2 on the road this postseason. There's no fear going to play against this Celtics team. What are your thoughts about this series from both sides, given how these two teams have gotten there and what we could maybe expect in this series going into it?
Well, the Celtics are a very formidable challenge for the Mavs, but I would also say the Mavericks are a very formidable challenge for the Celtics. This Maverick team is really freaking good, man. And Boston is too. And the defensive game plan is going to be very interesting because, there's not a Josh Giddey or a Jaden McDaniels. And great and fine players in their own right. Every player has their warts. Those guys do good things to help their team, but obviously the Mavericks game plan centered on, okay, well, we can help off those guys because, if when I look at all my options out there, if this guy ends up taking shots and he beats us, okay, but we don't think he's going to be able to, that individual is going to be able to do that. And it's going to be a lot harder to devise a strategy like that with Boston because there's just, everybody can shoot. They space the floor well. Everyone has the capability of knocking down shots on a consistent basis. And I know Tatum's shooting 29% on threes in the playoffs, but he's obviously a way better shooter than that, and clearly a devastatingly effective offensive player. So the first thing I think of is, okay, what's the defensive strategy going to be for Dallas to try to continue to maintain this great level of defense against Boston? They're going to go into their most hostile environment that they've gone into as a road team. The thing I would say about that is that, as you brought up earlier, obviously there's, real interesting irony in this series with Kyrie going up against Boston. We know how difficult it's been for him there in the past since he's, not been part of the Celtics. But man, somebody brought this up to me, just a good friend and Mavericks fan and loves the team. He said, I think that the team will rally around that. And all these guys, who, as I said earlier, who immensely respect Kyrie, that could really bring out, the best in those guys to rally around and support him in the way that he supports everybody on the team. So I think we're going to have a great series. I think the Mavericks can win this thing. I know who those that establish favorites and things. I know how they view the series, but if you're making your decisions about the Mavs based on a full season of data, you can't do that. This is a new team that, since they've been a new team, has played at the top of the league from a defensive standpoint while still maintaining very, very effective capability on the offensive end of the floor, man. So they don't have to back down or fear anybody. Healthy respect, of course, but, go in fist flying and guns blazing and stare down, eye to eye, nose to nose, and let's get it on, man. I think this is going to be a really entertaining, fun series. And I think, the Mavs don't have to back down or defer or anything like that. They are on the level of the Boston Celtics, and I think we're going to have an awesome, entertaining, long series full of ups and downs. So everybody brace yourself and get ready to stay the course like these guys do.
That's a perfect way to end it. It feels like these teams have been circling each other for quite some time. So now we have a chance to be able to see them in the finals together. So it should be a tremendous opportunity to watch these two teams be able to face each other. It feels like they've been circling each other for a while, and now we're here when it comes to the Mavericks and the Celtics getting it on in the NBA Finals. Look, technology trying to take you out, Mark. I see what it's trying to do to you there, man. But it's not gonna happen today. It's not gonna happen today. We got you back there, man.
Kevin, I think I lost you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Uh-oh.
I can hear you.
I think I lost you.
Oh. Well, we'll get Mark back here in just a second here on Inside the Mavs, but I appreciate him hanging out with me here on the show today. Of course, Mark, the television voice of the Dallas Mavericks. You can find him on Twitter at Followill, doing his thing always, no matter what, whether he's broadcasting or not talking about the Dallas Mavericks. The Take That With You podcast, of course, you can find wherever you get your podcast for free as well, as far as the Dallas Mavericks are concerned, on their YouTube channel. So I appreciate Mark Followill joining me here on the show today here on Inside the Mavs. That'll do it for this episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, thanks to Mark Followill for joining me here on the show today. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And if you can give me a follow at Kevin Gray Sports, I'll be able to let you know how things are going to be going throughout the rest of the NBA Finals. This has been Inside the Mavs, presented by Aura.